Welcome to Education 101 with your host, Erik Wolfram. Education 101 is about the amazing education community we have in the greater Spokane area. We highlight the outstanding programs, teachers, supporters, and opportunities of the education community in the Spokane region. Education 101 is brought to you in part by STCU. Here's Erik.
And welcome to Education 101. I'm Erik Wolfram, your host. Today we're going to be talking about computer science and some of the work that's been going on throughout the region this whole year. So we're just kind of getting to the end of the year. So to be able to talk about that, I brought in one of the experts around the region, Tammie Schrader. Welcome back to the show. We've had you on here before.
Thanks, Erik. I'm excited to be here.
Always looking forward to the conversation. And, you know, I love the conversation around computer science because I think it's a huge piece of moving education forward. And we saw a lot of that this year. We had a great grant, you know, that we ran at our ESD here in Spokane, and we partnered with 3 other ESDs, the ESD up in Wenatchee, the ESD down in Tri-Cities, and then the one in Yakima as well. And I know that we did some really cool work that went along with that. But I know you had some other things as well going on. So talk to us. What on earth is going on in the world of computer science?
So in our region, we have actually a lot of moving parts that are going on. So The first one, obviously, is code.org.
Right.
So, because we're a regional partner for them, our ESD is. And so we've actually quadrupled the number of elementary teachers that we've trained in those regions under
Just over this last year.
Just over the last year.
That's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
What does a regional partner mean?
So a regional partner is code.org is obviously a national organization out of Seattle, and they have partners in all the states. Well, not all the states, excuse me, in most of the states, where they run the programs through their partners, so their partners can keep track of the data and the school districts that have changed and the number of teachers that have trained in not only elementary but middle school and high school. It's so that regionally districts and actually even like librarians or people that are wanting to train can go through a partner, so they don't always have to contact the Seattle office. Right. I mean, not a tough reach for our region, but when you're in Texas, that's a little bit of a tougher reach. So they have partners in most of the states.
So that's great. And I know that was, you mentioned libraries, and I know we have a great library program around our area. And did you get the chance to work with them?
We did. Actually, we started not only training librarians, and then you've got Trish Henry up in Meade, who's making maker spaces in all their libraries, which has been a really huge movement, so that kids that may or may not have access to computer science programs, depending on who's teaching and how much the outreach or how much leeway districts have, they all can reach it through libraries. Right.
But makerspace, I mean, that's a whole new conversation. We could probably spend one whole Ed 101 show on makerspaces.
And we should, by the way, at some point. I'm just going to, because that's a really great concept.
It is. And so let's talk nutshell. What is that in a makerspace, just in a nutshell?
So a makerspace in a nutshell is a space that holds equipment so that kids can come in and they can do some design and engineering, they can build things, they can design things. So computer science really fits into that.
And it's amazing that Meade and Trish up there, the work that they're doing around that is pretty cool to be able to say, these are the things that are happening. Kids can come in and do some of that creative thinking, but have the equipment there to be able to make it come to fruition.
Exactly, because all kids have access to the libraries.
Oh, yeah. So code.org, I got you off track. You know, that was one of the things that are going on around the whole idea of computer science in the region and really across the state. And that computer science, or that code.org, partnership is east side of the state, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What else is going on besides code.org stuff?
So code.org has a lot of programs like Hour of Code, and they have fundamentals for elementary teachers. They have Discoveries, and actually Discoveries is only a year old. Right, it was piloted last year, and now we're moving forward with it.
And that's a middle school program,
And that's a middle school program. And then they have Computer Science Principles, which is their high school program.
Okay.
Right. So in our region, we've actually I want to say we've more than doubled the number of CS Discoveries teachers, which are middle school teachers that are actually teaching the Discoveries program. And it's actually a whole semester long. It's not just a one and done type thing. Teachers have to commit to teaching it for a semester as well as principals. And so we've actually doubled both of those programs in our region and have started now creating those programs in the other 3 ESDs. We're now moving forward to create that.
And again, code.org, the hour of code is that elementary piece, and that's really, in the classroom, I guess, to give it some perspective, that truly is probably an hour of coding is the goal. But then once they get into middle school, that's when it's looking for a class to be able to, I guess, dive deeper into it, find that interest and see what it is.
So just for a little clarity, Hour of Code was designed to give little hour snippets, and it just isn't for elementary teachers. They have some really complex programs that have been built for middle school and high school as well, for any school that wants to do Hour Code. And the other thing around Hour Code is they have a really pretty heavy-hitting partners like Disney, Star Wars, Lightbot. Some really major organizations contributed to this. So I did a training a couple weeks ago in a school, and I was showing them just the Hour of Code access, where there are hundreds of these where you can actually even do a search engine on the code.org site and filter, okay, I just need it for pre-readers, or I need it for science, or I want something around mathematics. So it's become quite the substantial Hour of Code contributors to that whole movement.
Is it something, I've got my 2 boys at home, is it something that I could do at home? Do I need that training? Is it something that...
Yeah, Hour of Code, I wouldn't say you need a training at all. I was just actually showing people how to do filters and where to access it, because it's really overwhelming. I mean, it is really overwhelming when you first see all of the organizations that play and all the things you can do around that. But code.org is actually free no matter what. And you can create an account or you can play without an account. So your kids could do it, you could do it. Really, anybody can. If you've got a computer or an iPad, you can sign into code.org.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Cool. What else? You got code.org happening. I know we have some other things.
We do.
What else?
So we are now going to be offering next year this thing called Launch CS, which is really interesting because it's still blocky programming, but it's going to focus on elementary, and it's going to be integrating things like Scratch programming. And if you've never seen Scratch programming, it was invented out of MIT, a man named Mitch Resnick. And 10 years ago, Scratch just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. And it really is a drop and drag that they now call blocky programming. And you can create variables and make games on it and do all kinds of things on Scratch. They also have Scratch Junior for kids that are a little bit...
And I know they have books that have almost a story, and you do the programming and blocky programming too. If anybody out there doesn't understand what that is, it's instead of actually typing out all the codes and all the words, it's blocks, and you click and drag, and it says move this far, and then you bring another block in, turn to the right. You bring another block in, turn.
Yeah, and they've got things like conditionals in there and loops and. I mean, it's really well done. You can, and all you do is drag the block.
It's a great deal.
It really is.
Yeah. So Launch CS, that's coming next year, you say?
Yep, we're going to start offering that. I finished the training June 14th, actually, and so then we're going to roll that out and start training teachers in our region to do that. And I want to go back because not only are they going to use Scratch, they're using something called Makey. And if you haven't seen it, you can go to Makey, I think it's .com, and you can actually hook up. It's almost like a circuit board, but you hook it up. And you ground it, right? And then you can play music on bananas. You can make all kinds of games. You can integrate it with Scratch. So I built a game yesterday where we could put a probe into a plant, and actually, when the plant got below a certain level of hydration, the Scratch program would come up and say, "You need to water me now," type thing. It's really, really interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Makey's pretty.
I need that. Yeah, I need that at my house
and your office.
That's why they're at my house now.
Oh, okay. And then something called microbits.
Okay.
That are also programmable.
Okay. So Blocky let's come back to Scratch and just all those pieces that kind of go along with it. Launch CS we're going to bring to the region and to teachers next year. What might be a practical application for a teacher? I'm a 5th grade teacher. What's a practical use of that?
Okay, so yesterday there was one of the demonstrations on the site is a girl, a young lady, a high schooler, programmed a person on Scratch, and you could drop and drag different clothing onto her, or different sunglasses, or boots or flip-flops or whatever, right? And my first thought was, okay, what would I do with that? But when you talk about, like, my first thought was I would integrate that into a math lesson about, okay, so really, how would you figure out how many different outfits could that girl wear? Like, how many different outfits could I walk out the door with, right? And that's using factorials and all that. I mean, you could really do some serious math with that.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking is, what if it wasn't a girl? What if it was an organism? What if it was an animal? Let's say a polar bear. I'm just picking one.
Sure.
And we talked about the thickness of its fur and how large its paws are. And now you can start talking about, what are some mechanisms of survival for that polar bear, knowing that now the state is focusing on climate science coming up in the next year. So you can really integrate it. The possibilities are endless.
Right.
I actually did a work with a 9th grade ELA or LA teacher, and what we did was he was teaching narratives in his 9th grade class, and I went in and taught them to use Scratch in order to program their narratives and tell their stories.
Right. And so we're combining ELA and the language arts piece, the literacy, into the science. You could do that.
You could do that.
Into
you could do
that.
Social studies, science.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The ramifications are really huge, especially at elementary, where they integrate everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, and one of the things I know we talk about a lot is that whole idea of playing games and using the technology to be able to build some games. It's a big interest that goes along with that. And so I could see some of that practical application that goes along with it as well throughout that. But that's one of those things that I kind of think about is, all right, if there's a teacher listening, why would they go to that? Number one, for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in, because it's, I like playing around with it.
Right.
I mean, even moving clothing around. I mean, that's pretty cool. But how does it come back to, how does it come back to the classroom? How does it come back to the idea of standards? I mean, as much as I want to say, let's focus on having fun and doing that, there are those standards out there that we need to be focusing on. So thinking through that practicality of it, of whether it's looking at the climate change stuff and talking about polar bears, or talking about math, but the mathematics using outfits, that might be a great way to go about it.
Yeah.
Right.
So as a science teacher, obviously I needed to hit standards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what I'm being evaluated on. And growth for students.
Yep.
And really that's what's significant, right? So computer science is fun, in my mind, because kids are engaged. And I recently was quoted as saying, you don't get to choose what motivates children, right? And my favorite thing about Scratch was kids are just motivated to do it, right? But I don't need to teach Scratch just to teach Scratch. I mean, it's fun and it's a game for them. But the truth is, when I taught programming in a science classroom, I taught things like predator-prey relationships, where kids could program predator-prey relationships.
See?
Kids were programming mitosis, which is the division of chromosomes in a cell.
Yeah.
And kids could use their various skills to do that programming and explain their science thinking to me as they program.
Yeah.
Right? And so I get to see a lot of that when they program.
And you start to do, it's perfect for small teams or partners. And so, if the programming isn't necessarily your thing, but you got that, there's a lot of teamwork that can go along with that.
Right.
So we've talked about code.org and Scratch. I guess Launch CS is a better way to say that. Why don't we take a quick break, and then let's come back and talk about some of the other great things that are going on in the computer science world.
Okay.
So we'll be right back.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region, or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Hi, I'm Larry Myers, owner of River Ridge Hardware. Welcome to our garden center here on the corner of Garland and Driscoll. We have fresh plants that come in weekly from all of our local growers. We can make your garden look like our garden. Here at River Ridge, we've been here 30 years. We're your full-service neighborhood hardware store. This is our sprinkler aisle, where my knowledgeable staff will help you put together your sprinkler system so it will make your yard lush, green for the spring and summer. This is River Ridge Hardware's rental center, where we provide a multitude of equipment for rent for the do-it-yourselfer. Next time you're working on your home or yard this spring and summer, stop by, say hi, and we'll help you get the project done.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
And welcome back to Education 101. Today we're talking computer science with Tammie Schrader from ESD 101 here in Spokane. So Tammie,
Okay.
here we go. We're back after the break, the next section here. We were talking about the whole idea of code.org, Scratch, or Launch CS, and the work that you've done and that has been happening, I guess, in the region and on the east side of the state as well. So let's talk some other things. What else is going on? I know you have some specific examples of some of the schools that have been doing some great stuff. So let's talk about that and give some props out there.
Okay, so we've done, if you've not heard of Ozabots, they're little itty-bitty robots. They're about $40 a piece. You can get an educational discount on them. But they work with blocky programming. And for anybody that thinks that they're really simple, they have just now released, so there's a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Level 1, when you go to ozablockly.com, level 1 is, you don't even have to read. Everything is done in symbols. They're getting ready to release level 5 at a calculus level, right? Level 4 is pretty like loops, and I mean it's really what Ozabots can do it's really high functioning.
Well, and even that level 1, when we start to think about the different levels, I've seen kindergartners do that because it's, you said symbols, but a lot of it is different colors and different patterns
Left
make
arrows,
it do
right
something
arrows,
different. Yeah, so I've seen little kids do that, and then if you're going up to calculus, that's cool. Anyways.
So we've been doing some of those trainings because that constitutes computer science. So, like I know tomorrow Beth Worthy is going to be out at Progress Elementary doing some training with their STEM coordinator and working with that. I know that Creston, we did training, and I think did we do kindergarten? I can't even remember this. It was a little while ago, sorry. But it was K7. So we went through and we got to hit all the classes and play with them. We have another date going out to use something called Spheros as well.
Very nice.
Which is, they're a little more complex. They're a little bit larger, and we're going to do some design and engineering things with Spheros as well. But so we've been doing those kind of trainings with Ozabot. I know we've done a lot of STEM nights with different schools and done a lot of training around that. We've done some Centennial Middle School
Yeah, in the West Valley School District.
West Valley, yeah. I'd like to shout out to Heather Wright and Brian Hickman, who are just amazing, and actually all the teachers there are amazing. Doing some work around gamification and game-based learning,
right,
which is also including computer science and some of that work as well.
And I will say, if anybody wants to see a really cool computer science robotics room, Brian has a great setup out there.
Yeah, he does.
That's a great new room for him.
Yeah. And so they're doing some things called game-based learning and gamification of classrooms, which has included things like Breakout EDU, where if you've ever done a breakout room.
Oh, yeah, we have. Love it.
We have to. It's awesome. And except this is like a classroom-based way, and kids have to, speaking of standards that people have to meet, kids have to figure out codes and clues based on like science concepts or social studies concepts to find the next clue and break out, almost like the national treasure where you keep going after the next clue and the next clue.
That's right. Yeah. And it's a great program. We've had the opportunity to kind of run it through a couple programs for us, and Diana Harrington does a great job of setting it up for us and running it. And it's a fun way to learn, even for the kids and then for adults as well. So yeah. So there are some great examples out there. I mean, from West Valley School District to Progress, which is out in the Central Valley School District, to Creston, which if you don't know where Creston is, it's out Highway 2. And what do they have? I think 100 kids this year, probably in their school. In their school district. So, and I think that's the great thing about the computer science and using it as a tool and using it as a learning opportunity is that whole idea that it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, talk about equity and bringing that equity piece that kind of comes back into it. So, which is a great deal.
Yeah. So another thing, speaking of equity, TechStart gave away virtual reality equipment, which was laptops and VR glasses and VR equipment to high schools that were 62% free and reduced lunch.
That's
so
right.
We had 16 of our districts take advantage of that. And so we started doing some training with them, and we're going to take them into the next step, and we're going to actually marry the VR equipment with something called Unity, which is a platform for computer science. It's more high school based.
Okay.
So we're going to start doing some trainings around that. Adam Smith out of Cheney School District is building programs with me, and we are actually going to be looking at also integrating science standards, computer science standards. There's some new IT standards that just got signed in by Chris Reichtel. I'm sure you've heard about that. So we're going to be taking all those standards and integrating them and doing some professional development with that kind of equipment as well.
Right. Well, and let's think about VR, the virtual reality stuff. I'm going to come back to that practical question again. It's fun to play around with, most definitely, but I also know that there have been some areas or some examples of that VR stuff, the VR equipment, and being a good learning experience for the kids. Do you know of any examples that we could talk about or just highlight?
Yeah. So, one of the lessons that we did with the first training was looking at science biomes and Google Earth and integrating that so that kids could actually experience those biomes firsthand, three-dimensionally, rather than just reading a textbook or even looking at a video of them. It's a very different experience when all of a sudden you're knee-deep in on the tundra, say,
right.
and you've got a herd of elephants coming at you. That's a whole different feel and experience than it is when you're just doing research about elephants or you're just looking at video, and not to minimize those experiences either. But VR is a really, really powerful education tool. One of the things we did was when we were talking about human anatomy, when you can actually go in and this heart is sitting in front of you and it's this big and it's pumping, right? And you can remove some of the walls and you can look at the valves and you can see how the blood flow works and where it connects to the lungs and how oxygenated blood looks different than deoxygenated blood. I mean, the whole experience is it's just very different.
Absolutely, and I think about back to my science days too. There's always the dissections, and dissecting a heart. But what a different way to go about it. I mean, given I kind of liked the whole dissection part of it. But at the
Some
same
kids do.
time, now all of a sudden it's sitting in front of you, but it's working as well. And so it's not just looking at the parts and going, oh, yeah, I see this part and that part, and this is what they're telling me it does. But now you see it, and you see it actually being able to do. And I think that's going to be a huge tool for learning if we can really get it into not just teachers' hands, but the kids' hands as well.
Exactly.
That's going to be an amazing piece. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I am as well.
One of the things that you guys did this year, going to come back around to that with that gaming piece, is I know that we in the past have talked about a hackathon, and you guys did that again this year, thanks to the Hagen Foundation, who really put the funding out to help us make that happen. Let's talk about the hackathon, because I think the difference this year too is you had a middle school piece that went with it too.
We did.
So number one, real briefly, what is a hackathon? Spokathon,
Yeah,
I think is what it was
it's
called.
officially named Spokathon, but it's a hackathon. And basically, you bring kids together, and then you give them a prompt, or you don't give them a prompt. This year, it was create a game based on something like a real-world experience, or something
Right.
you think we should build an app for, or the world really could use. So kids come together. The middle school teams came from 5 in the evening till 9 in the evening. So they had a smaller experience.
Right.
And so they come together, they pitch ideas. The high school does the same thing. They pitch ideas, and then they just pick teams. So kids can come with teams, or they can just meet new people, and they get together and start collaborating around how to program using any tools that they like. So they can use Scratch, they can use Unity. And so the high schoolers work with the middle schoolers to help them. And we also had Whitworth and Eastern and Gonzaga there, and they have computer science students there that actually help with the programming. So the middle schoolers stay from 5 to 9, and then they show their projects, and there's a voting system. And it was really fun to see middle schoolers come together because
bet.
they're so young, and but they do these great things, right? These really impressive things. And then they left at 9. We waved goodbye to them, and then the high schoolers programmed through the night.
Okay.
And about 2 o'clock the next afternoon, they showed their work. We had prizes, that sort of thing. And you're right, the Hagen Foundation was fabulous. They provided money so that we could feed the kids and have snacks and, Mountain Dew and,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
coffee for the adults or
Exactly.
the kids. It's just a really great experience.
And this year it was held out at Spokane Valley Tech,
It
which
was.
is
They
Central
were
Valley.
generous enough to donate their space. Thank you for mentioning them, because the space was absolutely perfect. There's all these rooms. It's just like a makerspace where kids could come and they could be fluid.
And it's, it always amazes me when I've seen it, because I've gotten the chance to go down there and see it. And actually, you guys were on the news this time around as well.
We were.
Which was exciting. I know you love that piece. But the kids lugging in their computers. I mean, that's the thing that just cracks me up. I mean, I'm not using the school stuff. I'm bringing this hardcore computer in, which is great. They
we
get
tell
excited.
them to bring computers. And honestly, the first year we did this, I thought, okay, they'll bring a laptop. Why wouldn't they bring a laptop? No, they haul in their entire. We have parents hauling in these big pieces of equipment for the kids.
Yeah.
And it's some serious equipment, right? It's just fabulous. And to see the college students working with high schoolers, and I think the most impressive thing is at the end of what is it, less than 24 hours, they've built something that is just incredible. Like, these kids love this. And I think my favorite part about it was when we do a survey at the end and say, what did you like best? And I fully expect to hear things like, oh, we love the food, and we love being away from home for 24 hours. But it's not that. It's overwhelmingly, it's, it's so great to just be creative. We love working with our team. We love collaborating. We love being able to talk to people that want to create the same things we do. So it's just this natural collaboration, which is really powerful in computer science. It's one of my favorite things, because when I started down the computer science road teaching science, I genuinely thought kids are going to get glued into their screens.
Yep.
They don't. They form natural collaboration partners around a problem that everybody wants to solve. And that's impressive.
And I think I would love to wrap it up a different way. But I think you just wrapped up the show and wrapped up the whole idea of what the idea of computer science really is. You've got some great things going on, and there continue to be great things going on. If you're interested or find the computer science stuff interesting and you want to find out more, contact Tammie Schrader at tschrader@esd101.net. And she can set you up with that stuff. So thanks for watching Education 101. Tammy, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Education 101 is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Education 101 is brought to you by our friends at STCU. Ask Erik a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com.